Usman here, back with another video. I am going to be doing my Morbius review. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the movie, giving my thoughts, obviously, my rating, that whole thing. If you've seen my channel before, then you kind of know that, yes, I do movie reviews and talk about if I liked it, loved it, hated it, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm going to be talking about Morbius. Morbius came out on Thursday night. Well, April 1st is officially the day that it came out. But March 31st is essentially when I went to go see the movie, Thursday night. So, again, I'm going to be giving my thoughts about the film. And yeah, my thoughts are I like the film. Oh, big surprise, right? Usman loves a Morbius, or a Marvel movie is such a big surprise. It's like, no, I like the film again, but it's not like, oh my gosh, it was so much better than ever before. Like, it's kind of like mediocre a little bit. It's very simple. It's a very simple storyline. It follows a lot of the same beats that you would see in some of these movies. Yeah, the action is fine. Like the effects are not as bad as a lot of people say. Like a lot of this movie has been kind of like critically maligned because like it's like, oh, it looks like it's a movie that must have been made back in like the late 2000s or something, or in the 90s, and it has this plot and this thing and that thing and that thing and that thing. But then for me, I don't really think that as much. I'm not like a typical critic. So like for me, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I didn't think the movie was that bad. It's not the greatest Marvel movie at all this year, or so far that I've seen. Really, this is the first Marvel movie to come out this year. I don't think it's terrible. It's not as bad, in my opinion, compared to like whatever anybody else has been saying. Very simple, very sort of like mediocre. Performances are fine. I like Jared Leto in the film. I thought he did fine as Morbius. I didn't think he was like the best. Like, oh my gosh, like his performance blew me out of the water. But I still thought he delivered a decent performance. Like, he was good in the film regardless of whatever happens. Even the other actors as well, they were not bad as well. Like Matt Smith, I think is like, was it Lucian or Milo, as he says in the film? He's not bad as well. I mean, he's very, like, over the top in the film. He's very over the top and crazy. So it's like, you see that and you're like, oh gosh. It's just, he's so crazy. But it kind of gave the movie a little bit of life. And I was kind of like, like laughing a little bit. This movie's not like, like the MCU where they have like jokes and stuff like that, which I kind of appreciated, but mainly Venom Let There Be Carnage was like the last Sony Marvel film that had like all the jokes and everything, and the jokes were just so goofy and lame and just weird, so I didn't really appreciate it that way. But Morbius, I kind of liked how they kind of were serious in this, but then yeah, the crazy weirdness couldn't come from like Matt Smith, because he likes to be a vampire compared to, yeah, like Morbius himself, who doesn't want to be. And there were some good horror elements in the movie, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's actually kind of convincing, and the way that they made it look. I wasn't like, oh, I'm so scared, but either way, it was pretty convincing for people who probably, watched kind of like horror-based stuff. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't know, I thought it was kind of convincing in that regard. To be honest, this is the kind of movie I would not want to, like, I mean, I probably would rewatch it, but I wouldn't go back to the theater and rewatch it, but I would go back and, like, watch it, like, maybe on a streaming service or, like, on TV or something like that, maybe just, just for fun, just to find something to watch on, like, a movie night if you're bored by yourself and you want something to do. That's what, for sure, I would say that this movie Morbius would be for. It's fine. It has some little ties, I guess, to Spider-Man, I guess. Music wasn't bad either. Wasn't terrible. Side characters like Al Madrigal as, was it Agent Rodriguez or something, and then, what's his name, Tyrese Gibson, I guess, or he was in the film as well. Like, he's like I don't remember his character's name, but he was in the film as well. They play like normal detectives or something, and they were fine. They weren't standouts. They would have comedy moments in the film, and I'll be like, whatever. To give it a little bit of levity, considering the movie's kind of serious. And Michael Morbius himself, Jared Leto, like, he would make some jokes here and there. He kind of, like, in the movie was like Daredevil, where it's like, his hearing was amplified and everything like that. It's just that, Daredevil doesn't have vampire powers. Morbius does, because he's a vampire. He's the living vampire. Again, my connections to that character are mainly from the 90s animated Spider-Man cartoon, as well as even the video game, the Spider-Man 3 movie tie-in game, I think on the Nintendo Wii. Those are my connections to the character, and yeah, the character has always been kind of like a weird sort of character in a way, No, I kind of liked him in a way, he's kind of interesting. I liked him in the cartoon quite a bit, and in the game as well. So when they made the movie, I was kind of like, whatever. Again, Spider-Man connections, not really, but yeah, I'll get into that actually kind of. Let me get into that right now. Spoiler warning. The mid-credit scene is basically like the whole multiversal spell thing with Doctor Strange and how that comes about. So it's kind of like, okay, the multiverse spell goes awry, whatever, and then all of a sudden Adrian Toomes, who is the Vulture, is transported to another universe, which I assume is Morbius's universe, not set in the MCU, in a cell. And he's like, oh, where's this? Like, I can't really remember the lines that clearly, but he's like, oh, I'm in another universe or whatever. And so that was kind of like, okay. And then the second scene, which is the post-credit scene, I believe, or whatever, after credits, was basically Morbius driving out to the desert in a car. I think he's meeting up with Vulture, and he's like, and he meets up with the Vulture in a suit, and he's like, oh, It's good to meet you, Mr. Morbius, or Michael Morbius. I've been hearing good things about you, or whatever. It's like, we should team up, do some good, fight Spider-Man or something. So, not verbatim with the dialogue, but either way. It can be confusing to people and stuff, so yeah, but in my theater, people cheered. Or a couple of people cheered, not like everybody. We were like, oh, Spider-Man, yeah, because Spider-Man was mentioned. But yeah, Morbius has never met Spider-Man in his universe, so it's kind of a little strange, but whatever. It's fine. It is confusing in a little bit, but it kind of screws up the continuity a little bit, but it doesn't make me feel like, oh, that ruined everything. It's like, no, it's fine. Who cares? I mean, they'll find a way to maybe retcon it or something. Maybe they won't mention that in a future movie or show or something regarding that. Anything can happen. Anything goes. Not great. Not as bad as critics have made it out to be. Not something that I would like to go back immediately, rewatch again in the theaters or something, but maybe streaming service or something. It is predictable. It is kind of just like, okay, we've seen the story before. A scientist turns into a monster because of an experiment gone wrong. That's like a lot of these Spider-Man villains, and even just a bunch of sort of monster movie type of things anyways. So it's kind of like, whatever. It's not breaking any new ground in that regard. Jared Leto's fine. All that stuff. Whatever. Villain's cool. Some CGI is a little bit like maybe with the villain, with Lucian or Milo is a little wonky or a little bit a little bit at times, but for the most part it looks fine. I didn't think it was that bad. Let's hope that Doctor Strange is better. If I had to be honest, I think I like this movie a little bit more than Venom Let There Be Carnage, which was Sony's last Marvel film. I would give this movie a 6.8 out of 10, maybe 0.3 points, because for Venom Let There Be Carnage, I think I give it 6.5, so this one I get 6.8. So that's what I would say about this. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Morbius. Feel free to check it out if you want to see Morbius, I guess, if you're excited to see Morbius. You can let me know down below in the comments. Do you even know who Morbius is? Have you seen my trailer review for Morbius, for one of the original trailers that came out back in, I think, November, anything like that? As always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.